Sup friends, Ron here, and today we're doing spontaneous sketching. What's up, Ron here. Thank you for joining me in another video. So it's been a while since I did one of these spontaneous sketching videos, and it's been even longer since I did one of these outdoors videos, and I really feel like I'm missing that. And every time I say that, I need to do more of these. So now it's time. I actually set it as a goal for myself to record outside at least once a week, even if I don't put pressure on myself to actually use the footage, but I do force myself to record in any case, and then I can just use it for whatever I want. I can, worst case, use it as a stock video for the podcast as a background, okay? So in any case, today we're going to do a spontaneous sketch. I will show you somewhere here the scene that we're going to sketch out. It's going to be a really fun one. I like this time when the sun is starting to go down and you have these sharper contrasts. Not as sharp as they can get, but pretty sharp, okay? So anyway, if you're ready, let's get started. I will squeeze the process a bit so that it's not overwhelmingly cross-hatching and boring, and but in any case, let's get started. Okay, so I am starting now with the sketch, and I'm doing this again freehand. That's what at least I see as spontaneous sketching. What I mean by freehand is not that I necessarily go straight into the details. I do build up kind of a skeleton, as you can see now. I laid down just a few lines to indicate where the perspective is going, and there's this road that's winding towards the right, and all of the buildings conform to that, and all of the parallel lines of the buildings go in that direction. The building on the left has this diagonal kind of turn, so that it has it's not a square, and that's something to take into consideration, and you'll see this better once I shade this, okay? Now what I'm doing is sketching that building on the right, and I will give you another look at the buildings themselves, okay? I just recorded them in video for a while, and then I'm just gonna cut it out to small parts and in between crop those there so you can see. So now just zooming in a bit so you can see some more of the details. This was recorded using my iPhone, so the quality isn't the best when I zoom in especially. So you'll have to forgive me about that. It's part of my project of making myself record outside, and I'm going to talk about that in just a few moments. Now, this weird little arch on the top of the building was one of the hardest parts, because when you get into the mindset of sketching a lot of straight lines, then suddenly you get a curve, and you can see it now, and that curve is really hard to get at times. And so this was a big challenge. Later on with the shading, it's not as complex. I was asked a while ago about shading round objects like spheres and things like that, cylinders, and so this is a good example that you'll see later on. It's not a specific tutorial on that, but it will give you an idea of how I do that, at least. So in any case, now I'm starting to work on the balcony. So my challenge for myself is to force myself to record outside at least once a week, and this connects to what I said, that I feel like another curved area, by the way, really challenging. That I feel like I need to work outside and to record outside, because it's part of where I'm headed towards showing more of what I do, and it's something that I have a bit of resistance towards, just because it's a lot of logistics to bring all of the recording gear and all of the painting and sketching, and I know that I need to think about an extra thing, and it'll take me outside of the experience, and it may hurt the final artistic result. This is why I'm trying to go as light as possible, so I'm not walking around with my large camera, but I'm using my iPhone to record and all sorts of things like this, just to make it a little easier for myself to do. So now I'm starting to add in the details, the windows. These, of course, also conform to perspective. The windows on that rounded part were very challenging. The main thing with the windows here is just to get to understand what sides of them you do see and what sides you don't see. So now, because we're looking at the building from the left towards it, we see the right side of the windows and also the top one, because the building is taller than us. So we see the bottom part of the frame of the window, and that's important to get correctly. The same is true for the balcony, the way it's structured. It's a little complex, but once you really observe the reference, you're able to do that. These are the things that really come naturally to me, and I talked about it a bit in the podcast and many other places, that this is really the big challenge for me, is that with painting these kinds of landscapes and knowing what to omit and what to keep in. That's my big challenge. By the way, something interesting, I started using the app called Anchor. It's like a podcasting app that basically you record small bits of sound, and it's like a small short format podcast. So make sure you follow me there. I'm not really sure what the URL is. I will put it down somewhere below, but my name is Liron. That's just Liron. That's the username, so it's easy to find. And I will start posting there. This goes straight to the App Store, to iTunes, and to Google Play. So in addition to my existing podcast, I'm working there as well. So now what you see is me starting to cross-hatch the sides of the walls, and just getting in some kind of a feeling of three-dimensionality thanks to the shadow. What I wanted to mention again about Anchor is that what's cool about it is that you can actually send people like voice messages. So if you have any questions, you can just send them to me there, and I can actually include them in the podcast and answer them, which I think is really cool. So we can try and make that into a Q&A platform. So that can be pretty cool. So I want to give that a shot. Now the video, in the beginning it ran at triple speed. Now it's running at about 10 times faster, because it's this cross-hatching stage, and I don't want to bore you with, it's just repetitive. I'm just filling in the area, as you can see. Just making sure, and I'm following the exact same guidelines I talked about in my cross-hatching video, okay? So make sure not to create squares, but rather these shapes of diamonds. And then after 2 layers, I'm putting in the actual texture of the leaves and stuff on the tree. I did play around with the composition of this one. I changed a lot of things to make it a little more interesting. And now what you're going to see in just a moment is the final results up close, and then the results together with the reference itself. And I really hope you enjoyed this one. So this is it, friends. I really hope you enjoyed watching this quick process. As I mentioned, it's been a while since I did one of these quick spontaneous sketches. I used to do many more of these in the past, but now I'm more into getting the accurate composition, and I really build things up carefully with the pencil, so I get less chances to do these kinds of works. So I'm really happy I could. I find this to be really something that's freeing and fun to do, and I encourage you to try it out, even if you know it's incorrect technically, to still try and do that, because it will help you develop some freedom and just to hold the pen less strongly like I usually do and I used to do. So it does help me loosen up. Here's the final result. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you still haven't. I'll also put links in the description box to my podcast, to my Patreon page, to my Instagram. If you want to see updates like this real time in my stories, then you can definitely check it out there. And I will see you again in another vid real soon.